How about that? Okay, it does take a little longer for Aggies to get moving. Now, we may start, but we finish strong. That's good. You know, if you look at our precinct, which that should be on some screens around you, and redistricting happened and all that, and I'll not revisit that tonight. But I will tell you this. There's more people live in the unincorporated area of Harris County than live in the city of Houston. So y'all all have a huge responsibility. It's the primary governance for the majority of Harris County. If we were a city, we'd be the third largest city in America. Y'all have a huge responsibility in terms of the money. So 200 and something municipal utility districts, funds, other within just Precinct 3. And when you look at that and you consider all the needs out there, it could be drainage, it could be more parks, it could be roads, it could be sidewalks. It's a huge responsibility. I want to kind of frame tonight's discussion. It's a time for boldness. I could sit around all night talking about how bad things are and how we can't get anything done. Or collectively, we can say, you know, I'm tired of it. I see my friend Tom back there. We talked many months back, Tom Patrick, and he says, we might need a little drainage done. You know what his mud did? They had a bond issue. And there's going to be flood mitigation on the old Ravenel golf course in the very near future. Why was that? That man sitting right back there. He decided to do something rather bold and says, let's let the voters vote on it. You know what happens 80, 90% of the time when people are asked, would you approve bonds? They approved it. The problem is we don't give them a chance. We say there is no money. We can't do it. It costs too much. It may impact taxes. But you know, you look at municipal utility districts, you look at those very neighborhood-oriented, people-oriented, constituent-oriented. You look at them, they're right there in the neighborhood. I don't have to worry about them spending money someplace else. If you vote on a bond in your mud, it's going in that mud. So as we talk through tonight, all the different issues that are out there, I think it's important to keep that in mind. I'll partner with anybody, anywhere, anytime. I may run out of money at some point, hadn't run out of money yet. Pretty close, but we're just kind of an update. You look at all the 4 precincts, the precincts that's already spent a good portion of the 2022 bond money is me. The precinct that spent we spent all of our 2015 bond. We spent and have committed all of our extra surplus funding. So we don't let it sit in the bank. I don't think that serves y'all well. And we do partner. It's good to be here with my friend Jerry Holman. We get in trouble a lot. And it's not because I'm Tom and he's Jerry. It's not because that really was one of my favorite cartoon programs. But it's because when there's a problem, well, let's just go talk to them. And I think tonight we're going to go through that. We're going to allow much time for y'all to ask questions, get some issues on the table we need to talk about. So we'll get into a lot of specific topics, but we're going to leave plenty of time to get into some more detailed discussion. Good to see you tonight. We're going to go solve that problem. Maybe the end of both of us, but he's got a developer And that developer may be in the room, and I don't care. But, you know, when you do something, you ought to tell people. You ought to let them know what you're going to do. If you're going to buy a golf course and redevelop it and put a bunch of houses on it, you ought to tell somebody. It shouldn't be done under the dark of night. You shouldn't go cut deals to get water for that development. You should do it in the open face. And we're not over with that, because, you know, to get a plat in Harris County, you got to come before Commissioner's Court. And with all the changes that's occurred with people de-annexing, it gets a little confusing. But you do have to come to Commissioner's Court to get a plat, and we're going to make sure that at least public comment has happened. So Jerry, why don't you get us started with, are you Johnny Carson or who tonight?
So we're both big talkers, so y'all ready to stay tonight? You got to keep us in check here. This is going to be great. I couldn't say enough good things about Tom. He's a doer. He gets things done. If you've seen Precinct 3 doubled in size, and if you look at the map, you see it basically doubled in size. And that was a cut in budget as well, Tom. And I've seen more done in Precinct 3 since Tom's taken over by far, with doubling the amount of land and people and cutting the budget. It's tremendous what him and you and your team have done, Tom. It really is. We're fortunate to have you. I sincerely mean that. I want to talk a little bit about drainage. We kind of on this, and in my district, we kind of lived this. And what we did was, we had floods just like everybody else with tax day, and so it's like 3 of them right in a row. And we had something that we'd been looking at and working with Steve Raddick on. We just never could get any traction. I think it was shortly after you were elected, Tom, maybe a month or two, my board president, Darrell Barroso, and myself asked to have a meeting with you. And we did that. And you gave us a couple hours along with your engineer. And we looked at this project, and you said, Jerry, I think this is something that's worth taking a hard look at. Let us study it, and we'll get back to you. You did just that. We worked on it some more, and I remember your comment, we need to get this in the queue where it's ready. And sure enough, we did. We got it in the queue. And when the money became available, we're currently doing the project. It took 3 years to get there. Our partnership part of this was right at $7.2 million. The project itself is somewhere around $50 or $60 million. And it includes multiple communities, multiple drainage ditches that were expanded, and it had to be kind of done in a sequence where we had to get the drainage ditches expanded first. Now we're kind of working back into the communities. And it does work. And we were able to get our funding together to make this happen. And it's going to extend the life of our community for years and years to come. And that's because of working with the county, having this in the queue, being ready. Can you speak to that, Tom, and how important it is to get that stuff ready when the funding becomes available?
Well, I see a lot of engineers in the audience tonight, and they can tell you that even though we would like to get things done, designed, prepared, you got to go through a lot of agencies, whether it's Fish and Wildlife or others, particularly if you're acquiring property. The fewer issues related to property, the easier it is for us to get things done. When you look at those things that Jerry at Freshwater 61, if you look at the couple of 3 projects that they've been involved with, is Tower Oaks Meadows. That's $18.3 million. Construction cost $25 million. You look at the flood mitigation that's going to happen because of that. You go. There's a couple of other projects that I'll also mention in terms of partnership. And when I became county commissioner, I see Kay Struzik out there, her husband Gary Struzik. He was my drainage co-conspirator for 30 plus years. He knows a lot about drainage. And this is what I've never understood. Why is it we have all these detention ponds in Harris County and there's not a pump on a single one of them? And you know, if you pump down a detention basin ahead of a storm, you can create a little capacity there. There's a place, Cypress, one of the ones that we did was at Cypress Park. We put gates there, that's gravity flow. And ahead of a storm, we're creating 120 acre-feet of detention. That's a big deal when you've got neighborhoods. Not every storm event, maybe that wouldn't be that big a deal in Harvey, but it would be that big a deal in some of our rain events. In another one of our parks, we went to Goforth Park. How many of you ever seen Goforth Park? Kind of a big lake out there, right? We've actually put a pump in that one, and we'll pump that one down ahead of a major storm event. That's 250 acre feet of mitigation. And that, we didn't buy any land. we didn't have to do anything other than put a pump in. Flood control has this aversion to pumps. And I don't understand it. We pump our wastewater, we pump our potable water, but when you bring up, well, we need to pump stormwater. Oh no, we can't do that. Well, let's go to Texas City and see how they pump stormwater out of their city. So I think it's very logical that we would do that, particularly if you can buy yourself some time. And listen, we're in a floodplain. If you live in Harris County, you're in a floodplain. So if we can buy ourselves an hour or two, it may be the difference between water getting to some homes and water not getting. So if you've got detention basins, if you want to look at that, we've done the hard part, because my first 2 years as commissioner, all I heard out of flood control was, no, we can't do that, no, we can't do that, no, we can't do that. And the third year, we figured out, well, we could probably do that. And now, my 5th year, we've done it. So we've done the hard part, getting flood control to agree to do it. So if you have detention basins, they may be ideal to put something in there and buy yourself some time for the neighborhood. So I think drainage is a partnership. That's an ongoing thing that we can look at, something y'all should consider.
Let me talk about some wins for the mud districts and what you might consider. Tom's talking about pumps. I like inline detention. That's something new. They used to not allow that. And that's where most of your detention ponds are going to be pretty close to a channel. And you've got a lot of wasted square footage there with berms and so forth. Now they're starting to do inline channels. And so you can utilize your detention with some fairly simple modifications to help everybody in the general area as well. And also back to our 7.2 million, most of that funding was replacing our own infrastructure. Our district's 45, 55 years old. And AC pipe, a lot of it needed to be replaced anyway. We run across a lot of circumstances where we had conflicts in grade, where they're putting in new pipe and we needed to move our pipe out of the way. So we were able to utilize a lot of the money that we put into the partnership to basically rebuild our own infrastructure. So lots of possibilities for wins for the mud district as you partner. Tom, I know we want to talk about sidewalks. I know you've got a big push right now to get some sidewalks in some of these communities. You want to speak to that?
Well, sidewalks are, the county didn't used to get involved in maintaining sidewalks. That changed just within the last couple of 3 years. So we are doing more partnering on sidewalks. We still feel like that some of those could be done better within the MUD, not necessarily as a part of a county program. But when the South Fair School District decided that they could no longer bus students within 2 miles, then you had a bunch of students walking to school, and we got a bunch of phone calls to put in the sidewalks, and we have put in sidewalks. For Cy-Fair, we work through the school district. So we've got 15 school districts, and if you're gonna put a sidewalk in particular related to the school, we're gonna work through the school district. I'm not gonna go out there and start randomly constructing sidewalks just to look good in terms of infrastructure. If we need one, it's justified, we wanna look at it. Certainly, partnership on sidewalks is an important part of that, I think. So when you look at what the possibilities are, we've got farms here that if you want to consider a partnership on a sidewalk or a group of sidewalks in your area, let's take a look at it. We do go into neighborhoods if our folks see a sidewalk that looks like it's failed because the sanitary sewer may be failed. Before I go fix the sidewalk, I think we probably ought to fix the sanitary sewer. We can sometimes get into a discussion on whether it's that sewer or not, but our people are pretty good at recognizing a problem. And what we don't do, if we go in there and put some polyurethane or some other method in there, we don't want to put that in your sanitary sewer either. So there's logical reasons why if you go in and look at sidewalks. So we will help maintain them. We will partner with folks to put in sidewalks, and we'll continue to do that. But we've got over 6,800 miles of road to maintain. That ends up being our primary focus within the precinct, trying to be sure that we keep those major thoroughfares up. And I guess this is a part of that. I'll probably go ahead and get in trouble early when I say, if you encourage planting trees between the sidewalk and the road, I think that's a really bad idea. But again, this is coming from the guy that has to maintain the roads. Now I know that you go down Rice, near Rice University, and they've got those wonderful trees and the canopy, and that's great. But it does impact the road. So even if you move the trees on the other side of the sidewalk, not on the street side, but the other side, those would be helpful. So want to do sidewalks, partner on sidewalks, work with that. But also, typically, if there's safety issues in terms of children, we're going to start at that intersection, be sure that they're safe, that there's a crossing there. We don't want sidewalks taking people to the intersections that are very dangerous. So we deal with those types of issues too.
Tom, let me give you a common occurrence in the mud industry. A neighbor calls in, whether it's the county or the water district, and we point the finger at you, and you point the finger at us. And that's usually how it works, and then nothing gets done. I will say that there's a multitude of issues with sidewalks, and usually it has to do with some type of subsidence. Maybe it was a water pipe, a sewer pipe that wasn't bedded properly. And over time, you get some settlement that occurs. The builder, once they come in, they're hot and heavy to build these sidewalks. They'll build a sidewalk and a lot of times before the house is even built. We also know that they're trying to raise the lots elevation. So they're digging these detention ponds and they're bringing that dirt in, and they're hot and heavy. So there's a multitude of issues as to why sidewalks are moving and cracking and up and down, maybe even tree roots, as you brought up, Tom. If someone wants to, as a mud district, you want to take on and improve your community, you see that there's a need there, even if it's drainage, how would you go about starting a project or getting involved with the county? And as a mud director, I would tell you that you put it on your agenda. You request it to be on your agenda, and then you talk about it. For us, what we did was, I serve as a general manager. That's my capacity there. It's a little easier for me. But you form, maybe you get with the engineer, the operator, maybe one or two at the max board members, you form a committee. And you think about what you want to do, and then you come see Tom's group, and you find out what you could work out as far as a partnership moving forward.
Yeah, it's just a matter of scope. So you decide what you want to do, come meet with us, we'll figure out whether we can find money. There are several buckets of money that we can tap into. Some days it could be TxDOT, some days it could be HECTRA, some days it could be bond money, some days it could be some other quote unquote surplus funds that we can invest. Sometimes it's a grant. Our representative, our Congress folks and state reps have done an extraordinary job of getting us money that was not expected, and some of that's related to projects that y'all may bring to us. I get contacted about this time, Landon was mentioning that today, we get contacted about this time of year from our congressional folks, from our state reps, but particularly Congress. Do you have any projects that we can look to try to help you with? Now, back in the old days, we call those earmarks. Apparently they don't say that anymore, but they're earmarks. So they are able to get some funds, and we've been successful in getting, securing some of those funds. So it just look for opportunities, identify those, let us know, we'll come meet with you and figure that out. You notice how Jerry worked in subsidence there. It was kind of a sneaky way to do it. But I'm sitting here telling you that subsidence is real and it's a problem. I know that because I've been to Jersey Village. We can go to a Jersey Village. Anybody from Jersey Village here tonight? You know where the center of subsidence is in Harris County right now? Katy, Texas. Who would have ever guessed? So it's a matter of using that surface water. It is more experience. I was a mayor one time. I didn't like it when I was told that I had to take 80% of my water from the city when my well was perfectly fine. But I have 7 grandchildren, and I feel like I don't want them to have to deal with their house sinking 30 years from now. I know it's true. I actually put one of the first wells in Crosby in 1976. I had to go to a newly formed group called the Subsidence District and get a permit. So that was in East Harris County in 76. You know how many homes are going to be built in East Harris County in the next 10 years? 20,000. You know how many surface water plants are east of Lake Houston today? None. None that you can get water from. So I'm working with the Subsidence District. I'm talking to Baytown. I'm talking to developers. I'm talking to anybody I can. Barrett Station is looking at maybe partnering and trying to do something. So there are some people that are looking at it. But we have a responsibility, I think, to look down the road. And when you consider what we can do today, we ought to think about how this is going to impact folks many years from now. I've gone to Montgomery County, and I tell this one because Ed's sitting over there, but I go to Montgomery County, and I was asked to comment on subsidence. I live in Montgomery County. All my relatives are further north in Crockett. So I go to Lone Star groundwater. I prepare before them, and I told them the story. I said the most significant drought in Texas history was in the 50s, from 50 to 59. The Trinity River dried up, and the Natchez River dried up in 1959. That's a big deal. We get 90% of our drinking water today from the Trinity River. They dried up. So the state legislature, in an amazing moment of insight, met in the early 60s and they said, we got a problem. They built 27 reservoirs from 1960 to 1970. You know how many we built since then? One. So I do take personal because all my relatives in East Texas pay taxes to build those reservoirs so all of us would have water to drink. So I went to the Lone Star meeting where they were discussing taking water from Lake Conroe. Now, I don't want to say anything inappropriate, but I think I read in the newspaper that the city of Conroe is running short of water when they got a whole lake just to the west of them. Okay, I think that's an option. I've simply commented, I pay taxes, my relatives pay taxes so you would have water to drink in 2025, and you won't drink it. I don't even understand it.
Well, Tom, all of these issues kind of intertwine if you think about it. Whether it's drainage and flooding, cracked slabs, sidewalks, or subsidence. So it's easy to kind of talk about all of those in the same breath. We need to move along. Let's talk about security. Tom, I know a lot of MUD districts have contracts with constables and sheriff's department for extra security. And you want to speak to that?
Yeah, we're fortunate to be in Precinct 4, Constable Precinct 4. Mark Herman's group, his office is right across the street. But even when his office isn't across the street, he has a lot of folks at our meetings. They do a great job. I personally, out of Precinct 3 funds, we do contract with Precinct 4 to be sure our parks are what they should be and take care of them in terms of the security. There's a lot of contract deputy, you're all familiar with the contract deputy program and what that means in Harris County. But an interesting meeting I had last week was with the county coroner. Now, I know that's not something you should look forward to, but Dr. Sanchez, nobody knows more about anything than Dr. Sanchez. And Dr. Sanchez always has numbers. You know, when you ask HPD, and I love HPD, Mayor Whitmire's doing a very good job, love working with Mayor Whitmire, but when you ask HPD how many murders have been, it's hard for me to get an answer. You ask the sheriff's office, and I love the sheriff and all that they do, it's hard to get an answer. You ask the coroner, he knows the number. He's got a body to prove it. You know how many murders there were in Harris County last year? 556 murders. Homicides in Harris County. Now, I'd already told you that there's more people live in unincorporated Harris County, right? How many of the 550-something people that were murdered, how many of those lived in or happened in unincorporated Harris County? 95. You're nearly 5 times more likely to get murdered in the city of Houston than you are in the unincorporated area of Harris County. And you can go through any crime statistic you want to, it's all 5 times more likely. Thank you, constables, and all that you do to keep this area safe. I've got the data and record proof. But no other agency has been under more attack than the constables. And fortunately, we were able to do a pay raise recently to keep up with HPD. We know that story. Currently, HPD has 1,200 openings. The sheriff and constables, they have roughly 300 openings. If we didn't provide a pay raise, then this time next year, there'd be 1,200 openings in the county and 300 in the city. So we were able to keep up, proud of that. They deserve it, and it's important. So security in the unincorporated area is important. One area that's got my attention is 1960, Cypress Station, between 249 and 45. Well, I guess you can take it all the way to 290. The city does strip annexation, so it's actually in the city. You know, they come out and they strip annex it so they can get all the taxes, and honestly, they don't do anything crime related. That's just a fact. I'll be talking more with the city on what they can do about those crime areas, those hot spots, but they're getting the tax revenue. We need to figure that out. I need to work with, if any MUD is wanting to get involved in that issue, I think it's an issue for your constituents, your people that live along 1960. You should consider helping us figure that out. I'm in. I want to help. I want to try to figure it out. I don't want to be the guy that says, you know, that's a problem. I wish somebody would solve it. Why don't we solve it? The city, okay, they're out of money. They're not coming out here to 1960, and we're gonna. Maybe there's something we can do in the legislature. Maybe we can go there and take it out of the city if they're not going to do anything, and give us the tax revenue, or at least take something. So we need to do something. And there's more hot spots in the area, but security is a big deal. Y'all feel safe when you get to your.
Tom, let's just make sure that we don't take the half cent away from the MUDs. The MUDs are spending their fair share on security, and a lot of MUDs are using that money to subsidize their budgets, to pay for security and other things like that.
We've struggled, Jerry, on 1960.
I understand.
So that
the
one,
city needs to step up and do
well,
more.
the city and the MUDs. So if there's any MUDs want to partner with us to help solve that big problem, we're open for business. Nick Raddick, the tallest man in the room, he's back there, and y'all can talk to him, and we'll get something going tonight.
And you mentioned the county, and there was the sheriff's department. They also partner with MUDs quite often as well.
They do, both of them. And regardless of what you read in the newspaper, we work well with the sheriff's office on investigations and doing those details. I see a sheriff's deputy back there. I appreciate what y'all do. Sheriff Gonzalez, his whole team are great to work with when we have the big problems in the unincorporated area, and there's investigations, so they can take just as much credit for that crime rate in the unincorporated area as anybody, and their leadership has caused that to happen. So we're going to continue to try to get that pushed.
Parks, you want to speak a little bit about that? I know we have a few pocket parks in our general area that homeowners associations have worked with the county, and you guys have come in and made a nice little park area for our community. We appreciate that.
Well, we have 73 parks. If you have land and you want to donate it to the county, we know what to do with it in terms of park. We will maintain those parks. They're great places for folks to get out of almost feel like the country when you're in some parts of them, Burroughs and Jesse Jones and actually all of them. So parks are, if there's anything within the MUDs, there's many MUDs have wonderful parks as well. But if you need someone to come in and take over an area to maintain it, we're there as well. The Harris County Flood Control District, they own a lot of property too. So we're always looking at the property that they own, and maybe there's something we can do in partnership with the MUD on flood control property to do trails or other things.
Potential funding opportunities, Tom, Senate Bill 7 was just passed. That's $20 billion over a 20-year period, $1 billion a year. Sounds like a lot of money, but it is used up quick. But stormwater is part of that, is my understanding, along with water and sewer potential opportunities. So everybody here would fall under that category. You might start getting projects queued up, because if you do have it ready, the likelihood that you might be able to get that when it's available would be much better. Tom, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, anything we could do with preparing a grant application, or an application related to those funds. I've been working with the Texas Water Development Board for many decades. They've been there, they fund projects, so if there's any of those, they always come with strings attached, so you need to understand what they are, but would be happy to pursue that. One thing that has been in the news to some degree is the surplus funds coming out of HECTRA. So just as to pull back the curtain and let's give you a little insight into funding Precinct 3 maintenance activities. I see Jennifer Almonte back there, road and bridge, 120 people, 6,800 miles of road. Much of that maintenance is being done using the funds coming out of HECTRA. The problem I've had for a number of years is we have 47% of the roads, and I was getting 19% of the money. Now, even an Aggie knows that's the problem. I just do the math. So I complained, and I tried to be nice, and then I called Paul Bettencourt. And Lieutenant Governor also lives in Precinct 3, and made them aware of this problem. So they wrote a bill. The real purpose of the bill was that it would properly disperse the funds based on areas of responsibility. So you would have thought we were trying to invade a small country. Everybody gets upset and whatever. Then the city of Houston engaged, and they thought they needed some of that extra money, and even though it's really Harris County that takes care of the toll roads, the city does very little. And we worked through all that, but all of a sudden, Commissioner's Court woke up one day and they said, well, this isn't fair. We're going to treat Tom better. And we came up with a formula. Part of it's related to the condition of the road, part of it relates to how much you invested in that area, and part of it's related to how many miles.
Tom, HECTRA, just for everybody, is the Harris County Toll Road.
So when the court met and they approved a couple of months ago, this year's disbursement will be 32% in Precinct 3. Everybody else is closer to 21%. So I consider that a big deal, because we need those dollars, and last year's disbursement was $300 million. You do 30-something%, that's roughly $100 million. When under the old way, I'd get a lot less than that. So those are dollars that will be available for us to maintain the 6,800 miles of road that we've got there. So that I tell you, the lifeblood of maintenance of roads in Precinct 3 is those HECTRA funds. And many people said, well, let's just pay off all the bonds and call it good. But you know, I like for my neighbors in Montgomery County and Fort Bend County and Waller County and Liberty County and Galveston County, when they come visit us, I like for them to pay some tolls and help me and you maintain our roads. So there is a benefit in terms of people that use the toll and helping us to maintain. You're right to ask the question, are you really using those dollars to maintain roads and not do stuff that don't have anything to do with it?
Well, I don't know about y'all, but I've noticed a lot more cars on the road over the past year or so. I think the people have done with COVID and they're back to work, and that's a good thing. So that'll make the budget number go up, Tom. Let's talk about the monies that were reallocated in Commissioner's Court, going the other way, away from you. Lots of funding that maybe you had available for projects.
Well, that was
Was that the bulk of it?
that was the good news is we are getting our fair share of that, those funds. Sometimes they'll dream up formulas, and call it science related to how we're gonna divvy up, and I'm gonna go ahead and jump to the flood control bond, the 2018 flood control bond. I've only been practicing engineering for 40-something years, and the most confusing thing I've ever tried to understand is what is flood control doing with the 2018 bond. It shouldn't be that hard. We should be able to say we voted on $2.5 billion worth of bonds. We've been able to go get another $2.7 billion of other money to go with that. That's $5.2 billion. So we voted on 181 projects. We've done roughly 40 of them at this point. Some of that's a little predictable in terms of that it does take time to work through the design of many of these. But Commissioner's Court has come up with a formula. They call it equity. I don't think they know what that word means. I always thought it was treating every neighborhood the same, not mistreating any neighborhood. And they went through and had the formula to distribute the prioritization of the bond. So we voted on 181 projects, and when they went back and looked at what projects they were going to do, it had to go through this equity formula. Well, I know a thing or two about formulas, having dealt with it for a few years. So I went to the most underserved neighborhood in my precinct. The most historic black community in Harris County is Barrett Station. So I went to Barrett Station, and I took that project that was planned for Barrett Station and plugged in the formula. You know what quartile that one was in? Third. It should have been top of the first. So I know the formula's flawed. That's one way to say it. I know the formula is rigged. So to take projects out of places like Precinct 3 and put them in other places like, I don't know, Precinct 1. So we're working on that. We're going to get a full report in the middle of September. I'm sorry, I'm doing my own numbers. Eric Keppen back there is going through those now. I'm coming to the meeting in September. I'm going to know the status, and Eric hates it when I say this, I'm going to know the status of every project that you voted for in 2018. What is the status? You voted for it, you're owed an explanation. If you voted for a project in 2018 and we can't tell you what the status of it is, shame on us. If you're not going to do that project, you should say it. So we're going to have some answers on that, those details. But so we're working through that now. We were able to secure at the last Commissioners Court meeting funding for all partnership projects. Folks, there were nearly $1 billion of funding with partnership. That's GLO funding, other funding that matches our bond money. And up until last 2 weeks ago, that wasn't guaranteed. But we did, in a streak of great common sense, said, well, why don't we fund those? Because it's other people. I have one project in there that's $1 million in bond money, and it's $56 million in other people's money. And that was at risk because we weren't making that commitment. So I think we're making some headway there.
Tom, you had common sense on here, but we've been talking a lot of common sense. Was there anything else you wanted to say specific to that?
Well, there's so many places that you hear reasons on why people want to do things, and I'm not saying everything is not in some cases well intended. I'm not opposed to kindergarten daycare. I'm really not. I just don't think Harris County should be doing it. We've got 100 other things that we have statutory responsibility for. Whether it's the roads, or it's the drainage, or it's the police, or it's the hospital district, or it's the jail, it's the sheriff's office, it's the constables. All those we have statutory responsibility. So our budget every year is roughly $2.7 billion. That's our general fund budget. I've found that it's 500 million of the 2.7 billion is discretionary spending. That's another word for that. We don't have to do it. And yet Judge Hidalgo is running around saying, well, we need to raise taxes before we even completed the budget process, and says, well, let's raise it a penny. You know what a penny tax, how much money that raises for revenue? It's $60 million. So before we start raising taxes, we ought to figure out what of the 500 million we can cut, because I promise you, there's a lot of stuff in there that's not necessary. It's not necessarily bad, but when you have statutory responsibility, that should take responsibility. I am not on the ballot this year or next year. So what I'm about to say isn't because I'm on the ballot. But I am not going to support any tax increase this year, particularly since last year, we hit you for a 15% increase in your taxes.
Yeah.
And we said, well, we're doing it because of the disaster. You know how much of your tax money was spent on the disaster? None. We got reimbursed from FEMA. So it was a shell game to tell you or to get you. So they got their money last year. I didn't vote for it. And I won't be voting for a tax increase this year. But even with those numbers, we've got a lot of budget work to do.
Tom, we want to hit some rapid fire on a few things here and kind of move along with time.
Okay.
We'll talk about some of your departments. I'll just throw them at you, and you make a few-minute comment or whatever you deem appropriate. Flood control.
Well, we get that. We've got a lot of work to do there. There's a lot of accountability that we're working on. The 2018 bond is the biggest deal, and plus some other.
I'd like to give them some credit. If you drive around and you see these huge regional detention, you've seen a lot of work going on. I've noticed, and we hadn't had a huge rain in the past few years, but I think we've seen some improvements in our areas. Where we might have flooded with a 2-inch rain, we're starting to not flood with a smaller rain anymore. And I think that's due to some of the work that's been done by flood control.
I agree with that. I think the storms we had last year, Beryl, when it came through, there were water didn't get into some homes because of the work we've already done. But I'll tell you this, remind you of this, $100 million tax increase, it was what happened last year. That is maintenance money. Say another way. Flood control has $100 million a year to spend on maintenance. It didn't have before. So I'm sure y'all can see and identify a lot of maintenance needs on your drainage facilities. Any outfall that's failed or anything else. So be quick to call. They have money.
So bring that possibly through Precinct 3, would they want to contact
Just call,
you?
we'll help you. We'll help you work it through this.
Very good. Health Department.
Health Department has 1,000 people working for them. They do a lot of, mosquito control. There's there's vaccine, disease, there's health, there's food services, other things. So there's a lot there, but probably more than half of that is discretionary. And there is no end to the money you could spend on health-related issues. I met with some folks today in the health department, and my advice was to partner with some great nonprofits like Tamagua, some great nonprofits like the Spring Branch Medical, great nonprofits like Hope. So there's a lot we could do better with the nonprofits that they frankly would probably do a better job of it. So that's an area that we need some.
Fire marshals.
Obviously, they're involved with a lot of different areas in the county, from inspections related to we call them nursing homes and other things. We found out in our storm events last year, we have 160 elder care facilities just in Precinct 3, 160. Now you think about it, a storm hits, we lose our power. A lot of them didn't have backup generators. A lot of them, the backup generators didn't work. So that's a huge issue. The fire marshal's office is the person that we work through in dealing with a lot of that. So they're important.
Well, we've noticed in the MUDs a lot of permitting. You might have seen that. They've really picked up their game as far as coming out to water and wastewater facilities as part of a permitting process. We didn't see that years back, but over the past several years, it's an annual thing.
So we've already talked about constables, talked about the sheriff. Quickly, let me hit it on the county engineer's office.
And permitting, yes, please.
It's a problem. I know it's a problem. Eric Hepton. If you have any permitting problems, call Eric. He's going to run out of here and hide, but yes, he's hiding back there now. But I say that because it's not functioning well right now. And we know it. It's not like it used to be. The turnaround on a plat used to be 30, 40 days. It is 180 longer.
Big changeover in personnel.
We've had turnover greater than 50% in that department. So it's something we know we got a problem. We're working on trying to fix it. But we've got, that's why we have more engineers working in Precinct 3 than any place else, because y'all have issues. We have issues related to permitting.
Let's stay on this rapid fire, Tom. Let's move over to other local entities that we all possibly deal with or have relationships. We'll start with TxDOT.
Well, we got a call that they're running short of money, surprise, and they're gonna delay projects, surprise. So any of those, I know Tom Ball got a call, theirs is being delayed. We're working with the new district engineer to try to move that out of that category. Steve Avalos, he's on the Transportation Commission. He lives in our area. So we'll be, if you have a TxDOT issue, don't hesitate to call. If you have a City of Houston issue, don't hesitate to call. I do work well with the mayor, and again, I can't go fix roads inside the City of Houston, but I partner with him on some where there's justified. So work with us.
Speaking with the City of Houston, I know the mayor was very helpful. We've got some new legislation that came through with the apartment complexes that were going taxes in, and in particular through the City of Houston Housing Authority. And the mayor was not happy about that. I know you and him had talked about that as well. And hopefully we've got that situation fixed. We'll see what happens. Cypress Creek Drainage District, that's, we talked about drainage. That's a new district that was created a couple of years ago. Opportunities for potential partnerships with them. Any comments?
Well, what I told the board there is go queue some projects up, identify projects. They can't necessarily be the lead sponsored. That's gonna come through the MUDs. They can't tax. And they were created to more facilitate the issues within the drainage district. They do a great job. Work with, identify projects. This is in general. We can talk about doing $1 billion projects, but can we start with some $100,000? Can we do something? And we seem like we spend all our time talking about, and Ed caught me walking in, I'm looking at him, and he says, hey, what about that Spring Creek project? Well, you know, the funny thing about the Spring Creek project, at least the Harris County part, that was identified as a priority 1. Did you know they haven't done a blessed thing on it? So it's a priority 1, and they said, well, congratulations, Mr. Ramsey, Spring Creek is a priority 1, and we're gonna work on it. They hadn't done a single thing on it. When there's probably 50 to 100 projects that are ready to build, but they're quartile 2, 3, and 4, we're gonna do 2, 3, and 4. If we have projects to do, we're gonna do those. Jerry said it earlier, I'm not opposed to queuing things up. Let's get some queued up, but if you got some that you can go ahead and construct, let's do that.
North Harris County Regional Water Authority.
So, was that on here? So,
He's gonna rope me up after.
so it is, Lake Houston is the center of water in Harris County. The city of Houston, through its requirements, built through Loose Bayou, constructed a pump station on the Trinity River. It pumps water through Loose to Lake Houston for water supply for Houston. 2 million people get their drinking water out of Lake Houston. Lake Houston is also, my Kingwood friends are here, would tell you, it is the center of drainage problems in the county. And I'm working with my Montgomery County brothers and sisters in the water coming out of Montgomery County. But everything, if a water comes in and almost in Hockley and ends up in Little Cypress Creek, goes to Cypress Creek and ends up in Spring Creek, that ends up in the San Jacinto River, that ends up in Lake Houston. So everything is going there. And the North Harris Water Authority, their responsibility is to take that water that's been decades getting there. You know that there's cities all over Texas, they don't have any water. They don't know where they're gonna get it, but at least by George, we got water. Now, there's nothing perfect about some of those agreements. I was mayor of Spring Valley. They came, they said you gotta pay, I think it was $40,000 a month for water when I had a well. I didn't like it, but I also knew it was important from a regional standpoint. So, in the context of what's good for our future, I think they're there. The devil's in the details. That's the beauty of having each MUD work directly with North Harris. And if there's issues, let's talk. I don't have any water utilities. I've got understanding of it and experience related to it. I've got roads and drainage and park responsibility, but don't mind helping anybody else.
Let me give some numbers. I had the privilege to go tour the new facility, of which 2 of the trains are online now, which equates to about 160 million gallons per day. Very, very nice. I was super impressed with it. They're making great strides. The big pipe is coming out west and will be there soon. They might be a little bit behind on the 2025 conversion, but they are making strides, and I think they're gonna have to come up with some type of negotiation with the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District to avoid disincentive fees, which is about $13 per 1,000 gallons, so there's no time to waste. But there is progress, and we will be converting to surface water. And we better get used to it. It's coming. Tom, let's talk about subsidence a little bit in the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District.
Well, and again, we're working closely with them, trying to get water on our east side. We don't have access to it there. As you know, Crosby, that whole east side's pretty flat. They're gonna be in trouble, not too short order. If you wanna know where subsidence began, why we have a subsidence district, it's all because of a little subdivision near Baytown, that we could go visit it, but Brownwood, you'd have to get a boat to go out there because it's sunk into the bay. So subsidence, in the context of, well, I wonder what happened to Brownwood subdivision. Well, it's in the bay. Well, we better have a subsidence. That's why the subsidence district was created. It's kind of like, well, why do you have Engineer Practice Act? Because 300 children died in New London, Texas in 1936, and you have an Engineering Practice Act. Sometimes there's a trend here. It takes a catastrophic emergency, it takes a problem to address it. All we're saying about subsidence is, let's be sure we're on top of that. We're not on top of it on the east side. I've talked to the subsidence district, and they're granting development. I have a problem with it, granting development without a real plan of what is the future for that. So we're working on it. We're not there yet.
You know, interesting to think about this, but our population is booming. We see subdivisions coming up everywhere. And most of them are going out. We talked about Katy being the center of subsidence right now. And you go to Fulshire, and you go out to Montgomery County and Waller County, and it's growing out. And they're all on wells. So where we're getting off wells, they're drilling new wells. And the water has no boundary. It doesn't know where Harris County ends. The aquifer just goes through. And if you're pulling water upstream or downstream, it all has the same effect. So just keep that in mind. Even though we're converting and we're making progress, they're drilling a well every day somewhere else. Tom, Montgomery County drainage criteria. You want to speak to that?
I think they're working on it. I think they had court today. I haven't gotten an update, but they were supposedly going to have more conversation on drainage criteria. The conversations we're having with Montgomery County now is, let's get on the same criteria page. If you're going to do something in Montgomery County, the criteria for it should be different. Right now, I think it's an issue in terms of the requirements in Harris County versus Montgomery County. The good news is they're working on it. So I'll be the optimist and say that at some point we can be on the same criteria page. So if you're a developer and you're doing work in Montgomery County, the requirements are going to be the same. I think we were long, hard, and did a lot of effort in creating the criteria. Because this is what I know about Harvey. When Harvey hit, I think 80% of the people that flooded in Harvey were living in neighborhoods built prior to 1986. What does that say? Criteria matters. I think it's a compliment to those new developments that have been constructed after that. So I think there's the experience side. Plus, Montgomery County's booming. North Harris County's booming. There's a lot of construction going on. So there's gonna be a potential need for partnership. We can't partner on a project unless we're on the same page, on the criteria.
Let me kind of tag in on that. For these older subdivisions, back in the 1970s and even 80s and 90s, the criteria was different for drainage when a development would come in versus what it is now.
Yeah, and part of it is we learn, we see, and it takes time to work
I
through.
mean, you might be looking at the double the size pipe that they might have had in at one time versus now.
Right.
There's a good reason, the partnership right there.
Jerry, I'm looking out here and it's 7 o'clock.
Okay, I'm moving along. Appraisal district.
Are they going to,
We got till 7:30, we're good.
okay, well, if they're gonna line up, you're just gonna go to.
Are we boring you guys, or has this been pretty good?
So the appraisal district, that's the one that Jerry and I went to the appraisal district. And we took our coloring books and number 2 pencil and big cheap pad. And they promised to talk real slow so we could understand it. He went because the MUDs he works with, and they had these public finance corporations going in and taking these apartment complexes and what may have been a $30 million apartment complex. You wake up one day and it's on the books for nothing. And the MUDs don't get any revenue out of nothing. So we explained that, talking real slow, to the appraisal district. And it took Jerry a little while, but they finally kind of started liking him. And they listened to him, and I think you're making real progress with the appraisal.
I'll give them a lot of credit. We met with them a second time, here about maybe 3 or 4 months back, and they were very receptive. They're actually posting that type of stuff online, so more transparency through the permitting process, which before you wouldn't know it until after the fact. So now you'll know it while it's going on.
See, here's the evil part of PFCs. They were getting a tax break, a significant tax break, and saying that they're gonna help with low-income housing. They had no intention of helping on low-income housing. They just wanted a tax break. So they couldn't even say, well, y'all just don't want to help people find housing. No, that's not it at all. What we don't like is developers coming in and gaming the system. And then we have to, all the school districts, all the county taxes, the MUDs, we end up, so we've made some progress in this legislative session.
We have.
And closed, I think, the one of the loopholes. I never underestimate what an attorney can do.
We're going to watch this real close, and hopefully they don't find an end round. Tom's just trying to get out of this next section, which I call the life of a Harris County Commissioner.
We took that out.
No. Tom, what is your most rewarding experience as a county commissioner?
Well, I think doing this, we get a lot of phone calls. We've got roughly, I'm looking at Jennifer back there, 1,500 plus calls of people calling in, can you fix my road? Can you clean out my ditch? Can you fix my stop sign? And you know, a lot of times people call you and you have to say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. We can help with that. And we are very pleased and proud to mow your parks, clean your restrooms, clean out your ditches, maintain your roads, because really that's what county government's supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be doing these other things that Judge Hidalgo and her folks think of. So it really has been a pleasure dealing with that basic stuff in terms of what's been out there.
Tom, how much time per week do you work as a commissioner? I know it's a 24-hour-a-day job, but about how many hours do you put in per week?
Well, this is kind of a public commitment I'm making here. We're flexible. You know, I can work from my car in my backyard as well as I can sitting in an office, but we stay in the car a lot. And there's always something happening. When when we see what happened in the Hill Country, what we look at is we ask ourselves, but for the grace of God, that could be us. Have we done everything we know to do? And that if the question was what keeps you up at night, that's what keeps us up at night. When we see a tropical depression, we see something. I'm not talking, the Hill Country flood was completely different than the Harris County flood. And those people like Phil Binion, who runs around saying, well, I know about all that stuff. No, a flood in Harris County is much different than what those people experienced in Guadalupe. But I will tell you that we do try to work hard to preposition people during a flood. We know where the tight spots are. We know what neighborhoods flood first and which ones don't. We know which people won't leave their homes. When we ask them, hey, the river's coming out tomorrow, okay. One guy said, we told him that, he just moved upstairs. And he was gonna, okay, I can't drag you out of your house. So I think there is something to be said in terms of those sorts of preparations. Our people take that very seriously.
Well, we didn't get a straight answer there, but I can tell you put in a lot of time. Discuss being a high-profile elected public official, Tom, and everywhere you go.
Well, I was in the elevator the other day, and I got in this couple gets on, and the lady looks at me and she says, I've seen you before. And I knew, I'm kind of careful. I said, really? And we made it the first floor, the second floor, about the third floor. She says, I got it. You're that John Moore plumbing guy, aren't you? And I said, busted. According to the University of Houston recent hobby poll, I'm somewhere south of some people.
All right, he's really going to get me for this one. Would you ever consider running for county judge?
Okay, I don't, and again, I'm not disparaging that office. I might say a thing or two about the person in the office, but the county government is run by precincts. I'm not saying that because I'm a commissioner, but when there's an issue, I'll call Garcia, or I'll call Briones, or I'll call Ellis, and we figure it out. The judge doesn't own a lawnmower. So if you need something done, you're not going to call the county judge. The Chronicle today had an editorial related to her, and they said, you know, the county judge doesn't really have any direct responsibilities. They chair the meeting, but they get a vote just like we get a vote. And they were pointing out the real responsibility of the judge is to figure out some priorities and go get 3 votes. And that hasn't happened. You know, that's what Ed Emmett did so well. It's what Robert Eccles did. That's what my friend John Lindsay did. They woke up and they said, John Lindsay said, I know, why don't we have a toll road? And I think he was told, are you crazy? There's no toll roads, you can't have it. And he was told that there's no toll viable in Harris County. Of course, that's a bunch of people in Dallas telling him that. We built a toll road, and I'd hate to think what this county would be like if we didn't have those toll roads. They said the only toll viable road in Harris County was Hardin. You know what the least amount of revenue we get in the county? It's Hardin. We figured out if we get people on the Beltway going around in circles, we make lots of money.
All right, we're going to move on to questions and answers now. I think we've got a few guys running out with microphones. All you need to do is raise your hand if you would like to ask some questions.
We've got one comment right here, and let me tell you before we bring these are very loud and we can't turn them down, so we're going to hold them away from you this way. And we got a public announcement announcement from the health department.
Hey everybody, you are not lying, Landon. Okay, so my name is Scott Johnson. I'm the Director for Environmental Health. We are the backup to TCEQ on a lot of water issues around here, and a lot of times we're the ones that TCEQ will actually call and say, hey, can you go check on this for us because we can't get out there. One of the things that would make it real easier for us is if boil water notices are issued by mud districts, could you please let us know? A lot of times we'll get calls from citizens or from media, and they're saying, hey, there's a boil water notice in here, you guys gotta go out and check out stuff. And we have no idea that anything's been issued. That's really all we're.
Who are you with again?
Harris County Public Health.
Public Health.
Thank you.
All right, questions, show of hands here.
Commissioner, I wanted to know what the temperature is at Commissioner's Court concerning constable for county contracts on the 70-30 contract versus 100%.
Well, they're not very supportive of 70-30. The court's opinion is everybody should be 100. I don't support that. I've tried to explain to them, if you're paying for 70%, you're going to get about 70%. If you pay for 100%, you get 100%. So this deal that the county's losing money, the county is getting nearly $100 million in support of law enforcement through these contract deputy programs. So we're working on it. The state legislature has passed a law that says you cannot defund law enforcement, and they have to be very careful when they start messing with the formula, 70-30 and others. So hopefully there is a requirement that you give notice if you are going to go from a 70 to an 80 to 90 to 100. So those are out there. We're doing what we can. The state legislature has been very helpful in supporting not only the constable's office, but the sheriff's office and all those entities that are working contract deputies. It is the difference. It's the reason why our crime rate is 5 times better than it is in the city of Houston, is what the sheriff's doing and what the constable's doing.
In regards to the comment that the health department gentleman over here said, with the recent rash of boil water notices and stuff, like my district, for instance, we didn't have a boil water notice, but most of our residents were just going crazy because the news media was out there saying that Tomball was under, the whole Tomball area was under boil water when it wasn't. And I think it's a good idea that he brought up, that we need to take and work together to make sure that county government, in regards to the health department, knows which districts are actually in these situations where they have to do the boil water notices, so we don't have a whole bunch of population that gets nervous.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're working on that. We're hoping to get some legislation. We've worked with a few legislators in the past. It's more complicated than it would seem. It's more statewide, and there's a lot of issues behind it and confusion that comes up. We need a central location that everybody can go to, and we need the state to do that, and you have to keep your database up if you're going to do it. And we've run into some problems there and some pushback, but there's been some good ideas, and there's a lot of discussion to try to centralize that where everyone has a common area. The media is going to have to get their act together as well. But people hear what they want to hear a lot of times as well. You see a flash come in and you see Harris County mud something, and all of a sudden all you heard was Harris County. Same thing applies with the city of Houston. But if you keep in mind, there's a lot of confusion there from who gets water from where. You add in the regional water authorities and so forth and so on. So it's complicated, but you're right. We need to continue to work on that and hopefully come up with some better solutions. I know there's more questions than one with a follow-up. And we got another one. How about all you engineers out there? I know y'all have questions.
Hi,
Put that way back.
Hi, I'm Ed, the Turner, Harris County Mud 504. I want to thank your office for partnering with us with the Madera Run Road expansion.
Sure.
That is completed, and I'm sure that our residents are also very glad. But I have a question also. The Atascocita Park or Atascocita Community Center. I see the sign, and I've gotten conflicting information as to whether or not it's next door to Atascocita Park, because I also was told that that was a low-income housing project. Is it both?
You know, we did purchase a building right next to Atascocita Park, and it is a community center, and we are under construction now. We're converting it, going through, doing some improvements there. The development next to that, I don't know all the details related to those new apartments.
So it is the new apartments.
But no, ours is a community center. You know something, Eric?
Yeah, so it's an existing building that was already constructed. It's not new construction. So if you're driving along Westlake Houston Parkway, on the east side, there was a small office building, there was a fountain in front.
Oh, okay, that's, okay, I know which one you're talking about. Okay.
Okay, any more questions?
That's a great example of somebody called and they said, we got a building, and we'll say, we'll take it, we converted it to a community center.
Got another question over here?
I was going to ask a real simple question. First of all, Commissioner Rensley, thank you for your help on 2 or 3 of our issues. I'm with WCID 110. We're at Cypresswood and 45. We coordinated with Commissioner Ramsey on 3 or 4 projects. I'd like to ask you again, I talked to you about 4 years ago about this. How about getting every water district to go through their districts and survey every detention pond that's in their district? And the reason for this is flood control was created in 1927, and they started mandating detention ponds, retention ponds. They didn't start inspecting them until 2012. They have no idea in hell where the rest of them are. They don't know if they exist. 3 years ago, we went to the state and we got a law passed that allowed WCID 110 to tell every water district, every detention pond owner in the district to get your act together, or we're going to turn off your water and we'll fine you. Guess what? We had 42 detention ponds, 41, I'm sorry. 32 of those were not permitted each year. Guess what? Every damn one of them are permitted now. All I'm asking is do that. Well, I believe John Davis, who you know, estimated you have 30,000 unknown detention ponds in Harris County. Just if 10% of those, say 5,000 acre feet of storage, you can get it back for nothing.
Yeah, you're speaking to more than private detention ponds. That's
correct.
Anything over an acre at a certain point, like the gas station that popped up on the corner, would have to have their own detention pond. The problem is they never do maintenance on it thereafter, unless forced.
That doesn't matter. Our law covers it.
No,
Every one of
I
our
agree with you. I'm just pointing out for the audience what you're referencing.
I think we would cover we can get a lot of acre foot of storage. And I know the difficulty with it. I understand it.
I think that gets back to where we started. These times call for boldness. So if it's time to tell somebody you're gonna cut their water off, he must speak from East Texas.
I like to say that's the hammer. You're gonna turn the
It
water.
really does. I think it's that serious when there are opportunities, whether it's put a pump in a detention basin, ask the private world to start maintaining and doing what they're supposed to. And I've never heard that before. You always hear, well, it's private, we can't tell you what to do. But cutting the water off is pretty good. That's a pretty good idea.
You might want to talk to your attorney about that. Any more questions? Here we go.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for taking this time just to sit down with us and speak with us. Just one question for you is, when do you believe the Little Cypress Creek watershed project is set to begin? I'm just curious because I've got several friends and family who've had property eminent domains and sold, but there's no clear direction as to the start date of that. Could you elaborate on that at all?
Do we have a date, Eric?
That's a really big program. Can you be a little bit more specific on which segment or which specific aspect? Because, like to Commissioner's point, he started talking about quartile 1 projects. One of the quartile 1 projects is the funding of the Little Cypress Creek Frontier Program for the remainder of the right-of-way acquisition and for programming on roads for design. It does not do construction because the majority of the Little Cypress Creek Frontier Program for construction is developer funded through the Little Cypress Creek Frontier Program, but through the act of court that Commissioner pushed, the entire right-of-way acquisition has been funded.
So that's one of the bond projects, isn't it, Eric?
Yes, it is.
So the bond project, part of that is right-of-way acquisition?
Yep. So if you have a specific question on a specific segment, I can give you a specific answer, but otherwise I have to give you.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good.
And that's kind of the nature of a lot of these. It's on there to buy right-of-way. And so we go buy a bunch of right-of-way, and that was phase 1. Everybody looks at each other and says, well, what'd you do? You bought a lot of right-of-way. But it takes many years maybe to develop that beyond that.
Any more questions?
Thank you for seeing us tonight, Commissioner. I'm representing Trello Lakes and Mud District. We have a wastewater treatment facility at the corner of Rankin Road, right of way, and Woodland Hills Drive. We've recently been notified that the county is going to come in and take that Rankin Road right of way off of Woodland Hills Drive and widen it to make it actual Rankin Road. But we've had a little contact with the county, and our architects and our engineers seem to be a little bit lost. Who do we need to reach out to or talk to, or what's the procedure to?
Eric Happen is walking towards you right now.
I believe you're in precinct 1, but as Commissioner said, we will gladly give you a hand, but I do not believe you're in precinct 3. The Rankin portion, I don't think it's.
We're north of Rankin.
I thought you were south.
Oh, no, we're north of Rankin. Okay, literally 100 feet north of Rankin.
Yeah, 'cause we have.
Right, so, good, thank you for, those are the kind of details that a lot of times, we got 20,000 employees in Harris County, and a lot of folks, there's a lot of moving parts, but if we're aware of something, we can help work through it, just like the HOA met with me this week on what a developer's trying to do. And of course, we talked early on about cutting their water off, but we're not sure whether we pass that point or not. But anyway.
Tom, I want to take this opportunity to thank AWBD for getting the word out, helping everyone to know about this meeting and all the work that they do behind the scenes. Mr. Larry Goldberg and Rick Ellis are here, both representing AWBD. Also like to thank the Water User Coalition. Many districts in Harris County we network with, trying to give people a stronger voice.
Excellent, thank y'all.